Station Houston on 2. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, we are ready for the event.
JSC PAO, please call the station for a voice check.
Station, this is JSC PAO. How do you hear me?
JSC, good to hear you. We hear you loud and clear.
Gina Sinceri, ABC News. Let me start with Ron. The observations you have made from the space station of the hurricanes, the tropical storms, the typhoons, and we're hoping you'll get some video of the fires over Texas later today, have really been truly astonishing video. So tell me from your perspective up there when you're looking at these powerful storms, how you feel about that and your response to it. We've heard a little bit. I'd like you to go into a little more detail, though.
Sure. Actually, I'm just the junior weather apprentice. Mike is Mike has been doing most of that. I've been focusing on taking pictures when Mike has been primarily focusing on the video. But I could tell you, it's scary from up here as well. It's just, when you see these massive storms and you see how powerful they are, and you realize that the destruction that they can wreak as they pass across land is just really awe-inspiring from up here, and it's terrifying. Mike, did you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I want to add to it. 3 years ago, right around now, you and I and our families were ripping all of the carpet and the furniture and everything out of Ron's house in Houston because he had 3.5 feet of water in it from a hurricane. So they're scary on the ground, and they're scary to see from up here.
We're aware of the negotiations and the research and the investigation going into the failure of the Progress launch and the impact that could have on you. What additional training are you getting for possibly having to demand the space station? Tell me about that process.
We're just as the investigation is kicking off and it's finishing up its second week now. There's a lot of work yet to do in that arena. The teams mostly on the ground. There's a lot of efforts going on to look at all of the different options that could possibly come into play. First, obviously, we're going to have a short handover with the new crew, if any at all. It's possible we will have a station without people on it for a hopefully short period of time. And those plans, we haven't started anything specific up here pertaining to that, except for maybe documenting some of the things that we do on video so that we can use video products for part of the training for the next crew. We'll be getting into the details of what it takes to turn out the lights in the weeks ahead.
And Ron, one last question for me for you. You've been talking a lot about the fragile oasis. How does seeing it from up there bring home to you how fragile this planet is?
Well, I don't think it's possible to look at the Earth from up here without being moved in some way. And looking down at the Earth, we've been saying this for 50 years. We've been coming to space for 50 years, and everybody that sees this, has a very similar thing to say, in that they're just struck by the fragility of our planet, the thin atmosphere and everything else. And we always say that you can't see borders from space as well, but apparently you can. I've got some pictures that show some border scenes at night that I'm going to get out very soon. But the point is not, whether or not we can see a border from space. The point is whether we can look down at the Earth and empathize with the struggles and the challenges that everybody faces on the planet. And that's something that's, I think, really apparent up here, is when you look down and you're just struck by this beauty, which really is indescribable. And HD cameras and everything that we have, all the technology we have, really doesn't do it justice. We get as close as we possibly can, but you're struck by this beauty on the one hand, but then you also, are faced with the, unfortunate realities of life on our planet for a lot of its inhabitants. And I think, that's the main thing that, over the last 5.5 months of being up here that I've taken from this is, that we're all in this together, that we've got big challenges to solve on our planet. But one of the ways that we can do that is through the international cooperation that we've proven on the International Space Station and this amazing research facility that we have built. So, really good question, and I'm looking forward to try and explain as best I can when I get back to Earth what we've experienced up here.
This is Jill Tolk representing the Times-Tribune newspaper in Scranton, Pennsylvania. A two-part question for Ron. How would you describe the importance of hometown support for station astronauts, especially now that shuttle has retired? And could you give an example of how your wife's relatives have supported you and her from Scranton over the past 6 months?
Well, hi, Jill, and hi to everybody in Scranton. It's good to be talking to the people of Scranton. It's a wonderful, wonderful place, very near and dear to my heart. I had the happiest day of my life there when I got married there a very long time ago. The hometown support is critical. I really think it is. I mean, just support on the ground, period, is really important up here. We are isolated. We are off the planet. We have a lot of technology to keep us connected. We have the internet, and we have the phone and video conferencing and everything else. But, we're not seeing flocks of birds fly by. We're not smelling the flowers. We are not living on Earth. We're not experiencing life on Earth, and it's something that we really, really miss. And one of the ways that we can overcome that and still feel connected is through the support that we get from our hometown and from our family and our friends. And I have regular contact with family members in Scranton. Every time we fly over Pennsylvania, I'm there at the plastered to the window with my cameras, trying to get good shots of Scranton and the surrounding areas, because it's a very, as I know that a very, very beautiful part of the country. So thanks for that question.
Thanks for the good words. As you know, Chris Ferguson is a native of Philadelphia. What would you like to especially share with readers in Scranton regarding your shared experience on 135 when they visited, and also shuttle's retirement, especially from your unique perspective on orbit?
Yeah, Chris and myself and Mike and the whole crew of STS-135, the whole crew of the space station, we were here during a very bittersweet time. We got to experience, crossing this line in the sand, if you will, when we went from the construction of the space station to full utilization of the space station. When we went from one chapter of our nation's history, that being the space shuttle chapter, to the next chapter, which hopefully very soon will see humans leaving low Earth orbit and exploring the rest of the solar system. So it was very bittersweet, to see the end of the shuttle program on one hand, but to see all the opportunities that lie ahead, and to see this amazing research facility that we've constructed. We, being the 15 nations of our international partnership, have constructed up here. And Chris and I and everybody on board, we kind of reminisced, and we kind of discussed and postulated, what was going to happen next, what was going to happen down the line. And, we are very, very optimistic, and we're very excited about the discoveries that are going to be made right here, right on this orbital facility, because we're conducting research here that simply can't be conducted anywhere on Earth. And I think we're going to see very shortly, some of these breakthroughs that are going to be made possible through this research. And, that's one of the big things that we all felt really proud to be associated with.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. One of the points of pride with the space station has been its continuous human presence, a record of now more than 4,000 days. Considering the small chance that the presence would need to be interrupted as a result of the loss of the Progress, is that continuous human presence symbolic only, or do you see a substantial value in having a crew constantly on orbit?
Yeah, Robert, good to talk to you. I think that it's a source of pride, the fact that we've kept crews up here continuously for over 10 and a half years. Maybe it's close to 11 years now. Is it 11 years?
Close.
I think we're getting there. It's a source of pride. I think it's important in many ways too. The space station does require some care and feeding, and so it's important for us to be here if we possibly can. If as events unfold, if that's not possible and we have to shut it down for a little while, we're going to do our best to leave it in the best possible condition. to make it through that downtime and have it prepared for the next crew to open the doors, turn on the lights, and come on aboard.
And sort of work off that question, with the talk of demanning the space station, the end of the shuttle, high-profile robotic missions to the Moon, Mars, and Jupiter, robotics on the space station, including Dexter and Robonaut, and even a recent observation by a popular science fiction blog that the fall 2001 TV season is the first time there'll be no TV show featuring people on spaceships. Do you feel there's a risk of the public starting to deassociate humans with space exploration, and what do you think can or should be done to reverse that trend?
Boy, I'll give that a try. Is there a risk? Perhaps. There's really nothing that beats, the power and majesty of a space shuttle launch to get your attention. Off of American soil, and that's really an attention getter. It's huge, it's dramatic, and it's over for now. And so it's a little different when we're taking off on a different rocket in a foreign land, and so I understand that. But we're not here for publicity or those kind of things. We're here to get a job done. Our nation asks us to do this, and we're here to do that job, to take care of the space station and to produce the results from all of the different experiments and investigations that are ongoing to the best of our ability. I think that we need to continue to do a good job of telling the story, explaining why we're here and what we're doing, as well as sharing some of the adventure of space, looking out the windows to marvel at the planet below us, at the stars in the heavens above.
And I was speaking with Apollo 15 command module pilot Al Warden, who spoke about the value of putting humans into lunar orbit to do observations of the surface below. Of course, the space station serves a similar purpose for observing the Earth, but so do satellites. So what do you see as the advantage of having a human behind the camera, in other words, yourself, that satellites do not capture or provide?
Oh, Robert, that's a really good question, and it kind of goes, it's very similar to the question that Mike just answered. We've always had robotic exploration, and we've had human exploration, and I think what we're seeing now and what we're proving now is that the most effective form of exploration is a collaborative form with both robotics and humans together, and I think we're really seeing that now. Earth observation satellites serve a wonderful role, and they're very important. But there is something to be said for looking out the window and spotting a fire and grabbing a camera and taking a picture just because we happen to be here and we happen to be looking out the window. There's also a feeling that you can get when you're up here, and we try as best we can with our video and our cameras to capture that feeling, to capture not just the views, not just the ones and zeros on the digital media that we have here, but to actually capture this moment, capture this experience as best we can, to try and show you what we're seeing. And you really can't do that from a satellite being controlled from the Earth, because it's just a different view. That person who's controlling that, or that algorithm, that computer program that's controlling that, is not experiencing it like we are.
Hi, Mark Carreau for Aviation Week and Space Technology, and I'm just wondering if you have already taken or you will soon take any measures to sort of enhance either general operations or science research on the station for a period of time if you do have to unstaff the space station. Are you doing some things to sort of keep it operating as best it can, keep the scientists active as best they can be if there is no one on the station for a short period of time? Thank you.
Hey, Mark, it's great to hear your voice today. So far, we have not begun any of those actions on the space station. It's the teams in Houston are in the preliminary stages of deciding everything from what ventilation we're going to leave running, what lights we're going to leave on, what condition each particular experiment will be on, every tank, every valve, every hatch. There's a lot to do, and they're just beginning that work right now. It's too early for us to get too worried about that, frankly. It'll take us, a few weeks to finish that up, but we have another 9 or so weeks here, my crew of 3. So we've got plenty of time for those kind of things if we get to it. Right now, we're working to get Ronnie, Sasha, and Andre out of the door next week, and continue operations up here. And we're concentrating on the closest thing, or the first thing, which would be how to complete a full handover, in less than 2 weeks when Dan Burbank and his crew come aboard, because that'll be a shorter handover than we've had in recent days. And there's a lot. The space station, the USOS part of the station, has grown a lot since we had those quick handovers. So we want to be as effective as that as possible. The next step is how to hand over to him when we don't do it face-to-face up here.
And Mark, if I could just add, the science operations on board are going full speed ahead. We are breaking records every week with the number of hours that basically crew-based hours of scientific research, which is over and above that research that's autonomous, that doesn't require a crew. So, in the unlikely event that we do have to unman the station, there will still be science conducted on board. It just won't be the crew-based science. And so we are in the full utilization mode right now, and we are running at a sprint pace conducting the scientific research.
Thanks very much, and I might just ask follow up with Mike Fossum on the prospect of having 3 crew on the station for longer, maybe than you anticipated a couple weeks ago. What kinds of demands with a larger station are you going to face with that prospect?
Mark, I don't have any concerns about that at all. We've, Ron and his crew and the crews that come before us have left it in good shape. So there are no big things hanging out there that I consider to be an issue. The 3 of us that will remain here when these guys head home, I have talked about it all, and we're going to be busy. We came here to be busy, and we're used to it. We're completely acclimatized to living here and working here. We've learned almost everything from Ron, and I have his cell phone number, so I know how to get a hold of him, after he gets home, to say, wow, I never found out, where's this? Those kind of things. So we're ready to take over, and I have no concerns at all. The care and feeding of the station is going to take a higher percentage of our time than it does right now, with spreading that work amongst 2 people, Satoshi Furukawa and myself, instead of 3 for the part of the station for which we're responsible. But we're working at a really good pace, and no worries.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes questions from JSC. Please stand by for a voice check from Kennedy PAO. Kennedy PAO.
Station, this is KSC PAO. How do you hear me?
KSC, we hear you loud and clear. It's good to talk to everybody at the Kennedy Space Center today. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Hello, this is Marcia Dunn of the Associated Press. Couple of questions. Number one, for Mike, I guess, are you still going home in November? Is that your latest plan? When is the most tentative launch date that you've heard of the new crew coming up? What's the latest you've got? And what do you both see as the weak links on the space station if it did have to be temporarily abandoned?
Hey, Marcia, a bunch of great questions. Right now, the current plans are for us to go home on time, middle of November. It could be slipped a couple of days easily. Later than that starts to get hard because of lighting. And much later than that gets hard also because of the landing conditions in Kazakhstan, which can be very severe in the wintertime. And the whole crew rotation schedule is actually set up to avoid that. But again, the plans are for us to head home in mid-November. And if things hold, the tentative plans, and they're very tentative at this point, are for the next crew to launch on about November 2nd or around November 2nd to come up. But the investigation is still ongoing for what happened with the Soyuz booster and the whole path from here to launching humans. there's a number of steps along the way: finding the problem, fixing the problem, having one or two test launches of unmanned progress vehicle, possibly a satellite using the same booster before we put people on it. There's a lot of things that have to stack up to make that happen. Oh, and I'm sorry, Marcia, I missed. What kind of things do we think we would need to do to prepare the space station for to be unmanned for a period of time? Again, we're not tied into those meetings and stuff. We have our work to do right here as the experts on the ground really hash that out. But it will involve things like every module has a hatch on each side of that interface between the different modules on the station. There's also valves to allow coolant water and airflow and things like that. So I think we'll be doing things like closing the hatches and preparing maybe sealing the airflow, because they just don't need to be moving air around the station. And that way, if we had a small leak somewhere, it wouldn't depressurize the whole stack. It'll be things along those lines.
Thank you for that. Actually, my second part of that question was what you both see as the weak links. The couple of things that would really worry you, that might have more of a tendency to break down with nobody there, that sort of thing.
That's hard to say. I think the folks in the program office would be better suited to answer that. But it's things like the pump module that failed a year ago and required an extensive 3 EVAs to go out and swap out the new pump module. That's important because that failure of that one component takes out half of the cooling on the space station, which limits, puts you in a kind of a precarious situation where you don't have the kind of fault tolerance or remain redundancy. And there's a lot of things. If the crew is here to take the action to do the recovery, it's no big deal to be down something like a pump module for a week or so as you get your plans together and take care of the problem. It can become a bigger deal over a period of time as more things have the opportunity to stack up against you. So a short gap, not a big deal, but I've seen some of the same reports that you and your comrades have written. As that short gap turns into many months, then your probabilities start to stack up against you, and it leads toward a greater possibility that we would have a problem up here that became very significant with nobody to take action.
Good morning. It's Peter King with CBS Radio News. And for either or both of you, we're told that the station, of course, is well supplied, especially after the 135 flight. But I'm just wondering if you all have begun cutting back on anything or making plans to cut back on anything in anticipation of stretching out those supplies for any period of time.
No, Peter. From a supply point of view, we really are in good shape. We've got a lot of water on board. We've got a lot of food on board. We've got a lot of what we call consumables on board, and so we're in really good shape. So the normal consumption rate that we've been using all along, we're still using that. We haven't gotten to the point yet where we really need to start conserving and trying to what if the possibilities out there, because we really have already done that. That was one of the whole reasons we wanted to fly STS-135 so much, is because we wanted to be in a position if something happened that we'd have everything on board that we needed, and we did fly that mission, and we've got all those supplies on board, and we really are in good shape.
Hey guys, it's Bill Harwood with CBS with just one quick one from me. All this talk of demanning the station has kind of taken me aback a little bit, just because given the history of the Soyuz, one of the most reliable rockets in the world, it seems almost inconceivable that they wouldn't get this resolved by November. How realistic do you guys think, and I realize you don't have an answer to this, but how realistic is the demanning thing, or do you think that's really probably not going to happen? I'm just trying to get your sense of it. Thanks.
Hey, Bill. Well, you've been around this business longer than I have. You know that it's a complicated thing. When you've got a problem with a rocket where it stops functioning, in flight, and shuts down, that's a big deal. And so, we're not part of that investigation, but you know what's going on. They're going through that rocket's had hundreds of successful launches without problem. And so you go in and you look and say, what changed? There's not a fundamental design flaw with the rocket. It's worked great. So what has changed? That's the first thing you look for. Was it a hardware change, a component change, or was it a process change? And you hope to find something in those arenas, and that's where you usually do find it. If those things don't pop out, though, then you start looking at harder things, and that gets to be a lot muddier and harder to solve in the weeks that we have, or months, just a few months we have to solve it before it's my time to go home. And so the possibility's there, and there's a lot of details we have to work out before we get there, and that's why the teams on the ground are pushing hard to come up with plans. Again, the ones I think we're going to use are the ones where it's short handover. How do you train people to do all the hands-on stuff that we do in a short amount of time? But you've got to start working ahead. You have to start working right now to say, what if?
It's Peter King at CBS with one last one. We're in a tough political climate where everybody is counting every dime and every dollar. And I'm just wondering if either of you are worried that leaving the station uncrewed might have the politicians thinking about permanently calling it quits and saying, we really don't need to be spending this money.
Yeah, Peter, we can't really answer that. However, what I can say is that, the money that has been spent on the International Space Station is probably, and I think history will prove this, is the best investment in our future that we have ever made. The money that has been invested will be returned, many, many times over in new material, new medicines, just an improved life on Earth. Not to mention, the stepping stone to explore the rest of the solar system. That this is a very critical link to doing that. So, I think that if we get to the point where we have to unman the space station, I hope that we've already demonstrated at that point how valuable this global asset is, and I would hope there'd be an uproar about keeping it manned and making sure that we get that return on investment, because if we're not here to utilize what we've already invested the money in, then we've wasted that investment. So I think it's really important at this point. I think Mike had some words you wanted to add as well.
Okay, you got it.
Okay. Stand corrected.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you to the Johnson and Kennedy Space Centers. ISS will now be resuming operational space-to-ground communications.
Okay, and thanks to everybody for the great questions.